Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Hena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyandrapinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Bhadram Karne Vishnu Devaha Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatraha Sthirairangai Stushtuභagum Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vridhashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi Swasti no brahaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 1, Karika 10.
Chapter 1, Karika 10. So we've done the first 6 mantras, and we did some Karikas, and we did the very famous mantra 7 with all the descriptions of the infinite. Do you have where we are yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you need more light?
Sure.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nivritte sarva dukkhanam Ishana prabhukhyayaha Advaita sarva bhavanam Devasturyo vibhusmritaha. In that which is indicated as the changeless and the Supreme Lord, there is a total cessation of all miseries. It is the one without a second among the plurality. It is known as the Turiya, the ever effulgent and all-pervading.
Yes. So Turiya means the fourth. And again, it is not another state of mind. We don't have waking, dream, deep sleep, and wackadoodle. It's not what it means. It's the fourth in our series of discussion. Because the Turiya, the self, is ever present. It is always experienced. So I remember I had a student for a while back in the 80s in San Francisco. Delightful young man. And he had done an acid trip 20 years earlier. And he was convinced that he realized the self on LSD. And he says, oh, I've been trying to get back there ever since. So what he thought was he wasn't experiencing the self. No. Which means he may have had a wonderful wackadoodle mind state. But that's not knowledge of the self. The experience of the self. We can't even call it an experience because it's not subject object. When are you ever not you? Listen very carefully. The self is difficult to realize, not because it's far away or we need some unique mind state. The self is difficult to realize because of its profound ordinariness. It is so there that we miss it. Couple stories to give some parallels in the phenomenal world. I remember very vividly when I was doing my sadhana in the ashram in San Francisco. Many of you have heard this story. So I came down early in the morning. Those days was all tuning up my mind all the time as best I could. I made myself my cup of coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table with my mind very quiet. Then all of a sudden, the compressor on the refrigerator turned off. You know, when you go in the kitchen and you hear that low hum from the refrigerator, you don't even notice it until it stops. Does that make sense? The problem is yourself never shuts off. It's always there. Way back in the 70s, we used to have these things called samadhi tanks. I think they're called sensory deprivation tanks now. Has anybody been in one?
Yeah.
What do they call them now?
I think you got the name. They call them different things now.
Yeah.
There aren't many around, but there are some.
Yeah, so it's like this pod, and you're in water, and it's 98.6, and it's dark, and it deprives you of your senses. But one of the things that becomes evident is you can hear your own heartbeat. Did you have that experience, Stephen?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, your heart's beating right now.
Right.
You know, you didn't gain the sound of a heartbeat. What did you do? You remove all the other stuff from your attention. And what remains? Love dump, love dump, love dump. It's always there. Likewise, the mind gets distracted and cannot notice the self. We don't have that aha in the mind. Oh, it's me. Because of the extroversion of the mind into the phenomenal world, into the waking, dream, and deep sleep states. So all that need be done is to withdraw from the world of phenomena and see what remains. So let's parse this Karika and see if we can get some ideas that point to the infinite. What's the first idea?
In that which is indicated as the changeless and the Supreme Lord.
Yes. So what is it that is changeless? There is the phenomenal world which is always changing. And True story. I've shared this with you many, many times. I was in the ashram for about 6 weeks. I was a very precocious fellow. And I decided, oh, I have realized the self. So I went out to the avenues to talk to Ram. He was the guy who was the head of these houses. And I said, Ram, I think I've realized the self. So I said, oh, really? Said, yes. I was in deep meditation. And all of a sudden there was all this gold white light. And I was just bathed in ecstasy. He said, well, what was going on before that? He says, I was just sitting in meditation. And he said, well, who was aware of that? Well, I was. When you saw the gold white light and experienced the ecstasy, who was aware of it? I was. And what's happening right now? I'm here listening to you. He said, who's aware of it? I am. Then he said, that's yourself. It does not begin. It does not end. It is there in every experience, past, present, and future, waking, dream, deep sleep, and wackadoodle. It is I. And even the Shunyavadins, the scholiasts of the void, it's a school of Buddhist thought. Consciousness itself is impermanent. Who here doesn't exist? I do not exist. You've had the experience that you do not exist? Oh, yes. So when you cease to exist, to whom did that experience occur? Let me see, prove to you what I'm getting at. Did I have breakfast this morning?
No idea.
No idea. Why not?
I wasn't there.
You were not there. You cannot remember something you haven't experienced. So if you're a Shunyavadin and yourself disappeared, to whom did that occur? If you weren't there, how would you know what happened? So the deeper essence of the teaching. There is something that disappears. Ahankriti. The personal sense of self, which is just a collection of ideas. It's not who I am. That is always there. Now, don't believe me. Don't believe the scripture. Use this as a hypothesis. In science, we're given a hypothesis. And then what do? We prove or disprove it. In the laboratory, in the spiritual life, the laboratory is my own direct experience. So throughout the day and in your meditation, stop for a moment, do our best to quieten the mind, introvert the attentive faculty, notice the knower, and see if you ever change. Next idea.
There is a cessation, there is a total cessation of all miseries.
Yes. So physical pain gets to my body. I know it. Emotional upset gets to my mind. I know it. Doubt and confusion gets to my intellect. I know it. But I is never touched. No sorrow reaches there. Now, misery and suffering is a really weird thing. It is a phenomenon in the mind. For example, have you ever had like an ache or a pain in the body and you get really engrossed in something? And for the time that you're engrossed in something, you're not aware of the pain. You know, like you're working on a project or you're cooking something and, you know, oh, I remembered my elbow hurt. I totally forgot my elbow hurt.
Yeah.
So the mind needs to be connected to it in order for us to be miserable. And whatever our sorrows are, where do they go in deep sleep? Gone. So the dukkha, the suffering, must involve the engagement of the mind. Now, what he's talking about here is no sorrow reaches the self. But to the degree that the mind itself thins out or becomes single pointed, or even manolaya, when the mind goes into dissolution, into sleep, or manonasha, literally the destruction of the mind. When the mind ends samadhi, then our experience of sorrow ends. Now, there are enormous ramifications to this. How can we be permanently free from suffering? Through intense detachment and complete abandonment of a personal sense of self. One of my favorite worldly examples, if you're in traffic and you're late and you're caught in a traffic jam, we may start out, oh, a-holes, you know, why are you stopping? Oh, I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late. Suffering. And then all of a sudden you choose to say, okay, I'll get there when I get there. I'll just text them and say I'm going to be late. And then you let it go. Who's had that happen? What happened to the suffering? You did not resolve the struggle of ego. You dropped the struggle. You dropped the struggler to some degree. Very common worldly experience, but it indicates the value of yoga. Let go. It's all going to be okay. I was talking with a family member this morning. Oh, we're doomed. We're doomed. her notions about politics. I can't even watch the news. We're doomed. So upset. But I promise you, the self in you is never die. Now listen carefully. All those people, they were killed in the plane crash. It's so tragic. Well, there may be suffering getting on the way. Being dead doesn't hurt. The self in all those people is just as Ram Dass says, even die is completely safe. Now, we don't go around saying that to people in the ordinary world. It's cruel. But you know this. You are eternal, and no sorrow, no misery touches you ever. Next idea.
It is the one without a second among the plurality.
What do we mean, one without a second? We call this philosophy, this practice, Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta means the study of the philosophy that's at the end of the Vedas, Vedanta, Vedanta, or you could say it's the end of knowledge. But I used to think, well, why don't we call it Ekam Sat Vedanta? The philosophy of the one truth. Ek is one, Sat truth. Why don't we call it that? Why do we call it Advaita? Dvi is two. Means not. Advaita means not two. Why do we call it that? The reason is my direct experiences, I see stuff. That's our experience. Real spirituality never denies our direct experience. We may not really understand what we're experiencing. We may not yet have had an experience. But it never says don't believe what you're directly experiencing. What's happening is happening. And the fact of my experience is I cognize stuff. I think I am the knower, and all that stuff I know is separate from me. And what the scripture is thundering is it looks like two, but it's not. And again, the easiest way to understand this is to go to the dream state. I like to say you are the God of your dream. In the dream state, you have your one unified mind. But when you dream, that mind splinters, refracts into a dream body and a dream ego identified with it, The dream body becomes what I call the locus of perception. It's the place from which I peep out at a dream world. When I have a dream, there are people, places, things, and conditions in my dream world. And inside, I have reactions, thoughts, feelings, etc. I have all the apparently dualistic experiences that I'm having right now in the waking state. But even though it looks like a dualistic world in the dream state, when I wake up, I realize, oh no, it was my one mind that appeared as knower and known. Is everybody clear on that? So the scripture is thundering. This is no different. It looks like two, but it's not two. It is not Dvaita. It is a non-dual. All of this is nothing but Brahma. What appears as name and form is just consciousness. So, for example, I here have a coffee mug. It's made out of clay. It's Italian ceramic. Okay, what I want you to do is take cup out of it and just let the clay be there. Can you take a thing called cup that is in any way separate from the clay? No, it is the clay itself that appears as the cup. You cannot separate the world of name and form from consciousness. The material cause of all phenomena is consciousness itself. What about the politician I don't like? That too. Sarvam kalvidam brahma. All this, sarvavidam, verily, is God. Which is why I like to use this English maxim. Right where the trouble seems to be, there God is. Now we have notions of what we think is perfect. If we really examine that, my idea of perfection is I'm getting what I want. Wow. Think. Well, if God were really in charge, it'd be perfect. I always think of the two football teams, one at each end of the field before the game, and both of them are down on one knee, each praying that they win. What's God supposed to do? So listen carefully. It really is perfect, just as it is. Nobody else is doing it. Now, God's phenomenal universe does unfold according to law. There's physical laws and there's metaphysical laws. We'll go into that at another time. But it is perfect. Because it is. And it is nothing but consciousness. Next idea.
It is known as the Turiya, the ever effulgent and all pervading.
So it is known as the fourth, the Turiya, meaning the fourth in our discussion. Ever effulgent. What do we mean by effulgent? Means that it's like a light. So I turn on the light so that the print on the book is easier for Puneet to read. This lamp lights the print on his book. You all understand that? Now, do I need to get a flashlight out to light the light bulb in the light? Do I?
No,
Why not?
because it's not the correct way to get light.
Does the bulb in the lamp need another light
No.
in order to light it?
No, it's the source.
It is Swayam Jyoti. It is self-luminous. It is self-effulgent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You are the light of consciousness. This Prakash, by which everything is known. Do you know the bowl on the table?
Yes.
Do you know the sound of the rain in the traffic? Do you know the fragrance of the incense? Do you know the sensations in your body? Do you know what you had for dinner last night? Do you know your feelings? Do you know your thoughts? Do you know how irritating your partner is? Yes?
Yes.
But you do not know yourself as an object. You cannot see yourself as an object. You're in meditation and you're waiting for the self to go by. That's not how it is. It's like trying to see your eyes. No person has ever seen their own eyes. Well, I look in a mirror and I can see my eyes. No, you're seeing the reflection of your eyes. Pull it out and look at it. Nobody does that. You've never seen your eyes. Well, that's proof that you obviously can't see. No, it's not proof that you can't see. It's proof that you cannot see your eyes as an object of sight. No one can taste their own tongue. You can't shine a flashlight on its own batteries. So you are that by which everything is known, without which nothing can be known. You are never known as an object of awareness. That's why the scriptures say it is unknowable by the senses, unknowable by the mind. But you are not unknown. Are you? How do you know it? You do not see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, or think yourself. yet you are self-evident. Swayambhu. Self-effulgent. Swayamjyoti. What was the phrase he used? Did he use Jyoti?
Vibhuhu.
Vibhuhu. Self-evident. Self-evident. All right.
Devaha is effulgent.
Okay. Next one. Next idea, or is we
That
need
was
to finish?
that was the
All right. And another Karika? Or are we back to the mantras? Yeah.
another Karika.
Okay.
कार्य कारण बुद्धौता इष्येते विश्व तैजसौ प्राज्ञा कारण बुद्धस्तु द्वैतौ तुर्येन सिद्ध्यतः. Vishwa and Taijasa are both conditioned by cause and effect, but Prajna is conditioned by cause alone. Both cause and effect exist not in Turiya.
So, the stuff of mind. Frequently, later scriptures will use the word chitta, the mind stuff. Sa guna Brahman, Brahman with qualities. This apparent forking, subject object. So, in the world of objective phenomena, this scripture thunders, it's all mind, it's all Chaitanya, all the stuff of states of consciousness, we can say. And we have a cause and effect. So what he's saying here is prajna, or the deep sleep state, is actually the bundle of all the egoistic impressions gathered from lifetimes in their seed form. This is why yesterday, did you cook anything particularly special yesterday?
No.
No. But you cooked something, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you went to sleep last night?
Yeah.
Did you wake up as a computer programmer?
Nope.
Why not?
Because that's not the Vastas here.
Yeah.
My Vasna bundle.
Hmm?
My Vasna bundle. It's not a computer programming Vasna bundle.
But when Puneet sound asleep, his experience is on awakening. I must have slept soundly. I knew nothing. You sleep soundly, same experience. I think deep sleep is the same for everybody. It is, and it isn't. The potentiality of the dream and the waking state are there. So here the scripture says that deep sleep state, that prajna, is the causal condition. It is what we might call the karana sharira. Karana means causal, sharira means body. That's my causal body. We infer its nature only from the effects. You can't directly see the particulars, the nature of the vasanas. You can only infer them from their effects. The direct experience of vasana is pure ignorance. That's prajna. But the effects of it show up In the waking state, Vishwa, Vaishwanara, and in the dream state, Ayajasa. So, deep sleep, pure vasana, its nature is pure ignorance. It is cause. Waking state, effect. Dream state, effect. And when those particular vasanas get exhausted, and like Bilbo in the last third book of the Lord of the Rings, he sleeps all the time. But the Turiya is beyond all that. It is the consciousness that's ever illuminating waking, dream, deep sleep, waking, dream, deep sleep, or any other mind state. I may do some particular tantric practice and have visions, see celestial beings, astrally project. All of this is in the world of phenomena. Anatman, not self. In me, Turiya. It is both shunya, empty, and purna, full of what? Me. A shoreless ocean of infinite awareness. Be Shuddha, extremely pure. Empty like space. Beyond the movements. They're always there. Always there. Next one,
Jim, sorry, I have a question.
please.
So vasanas are not memories. Like a vasana bandha is not a memory.
It is the cause of memory.
It's the cause of it. Because in theory, if somebody were to lose their memories, they could still wake up the next day and go about their.
What happens to you all the time? What is today, the 1st of February? What were you doing a decade ago?
I don't know.
Yeah, you have no memory, but you still have continuity, which is yourself, and you still have the continuity of experience to some degree. So, who are you, Lindy? You have a relationship with someone who's struggling with memory loss.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still some continuity of personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though he doesn't remember what happened yesterday or this morning. Now, we do need the memory to function to some degree.
Yeah.
People with very severe Alzheimer's They will forget what day it is. They will forget where they are. They will cease remembering their family and things like that. Now, it's interesting. For some people, when they move into that condition, it's terrifying. But there are people with advanced Alzheimer's who have great serenity.
It was interesting. My dad had dementia for the last 6 years of his life, and he couldn't take care of himself, but there was certain conditioning. He knew when to get up and put on his clothes and come down for breakfast and brush his teeth. There were certain things that never left.
Was he at peace with it, or did it agitate him?
It wasn't agitated. I think he was mostly at peace. It's how much my projection of his state compared to his state.
Well, you can tell when someone's upset.
No, he wasn't. I think he maybe was depressed a little or sad because he knew enough to know what he didn't know.
Yes.
But he wasn't agitated. But it was just interesting how conditioning kept going, even when so much was gone.
Now, one of the things that we do see in the dream state, much of our disability, I wouldn't even say much, all of it has to do with the physical body. So, for example, many of you know I'm legally blind. I'm never blind in my dreams. I see perfectly well in my dreams. The other thing in my dreams, I'm never fat in my dreams. I don't have any trouble climbing stairs. It's really funny,
And you can fly in some of your dreams.
In some of my dreams, I can fly. Freud would have a heyday with that. So the mind, you see, separates a bit in the dream state from the physical body. It's fascinating. Very interesting. So did that answer your question?
I think so.
Now, we won't get into that right now. All right, next verse.
Natvanam na parashchaiva na satyam na pichanitram prajna kinchana sanveti suryam tat sarvadrik sada. Prajna does not know anything of the truth or the untruth, nor does Prajna know anything of the self or of the not self. Prajna knows nothing. But Turiya is ever and it is always the all-knowing, the all-seeing.
Yes. Now, there's lots of implication in this. So, you are not unconscious in the deep sleep state. You are conscious of the mind folded up into the state of pure ignorance. It is like the difference between seeing darkness and being blind. If you are seeing darkness, your experience is, I see nothing. But if someone lights a match, I can see the light. If you're blind and someone lights the match, you can't see it. So you, awareness, are there illuminating the mind folded up into pure ignorance. It is like when you close your eyes. You are not blind. You are seeing the back of your eyelids, which obscures, occludes visible sight. Here's the self, always shining as the light of pure awareness. Here is the mind, always illuminated by it, the waking state, the dream state, deep sleep. Watch carefully, samadhi. And when the mind returns from samadhi, oh my gosh, there's nobody there. That's what happens. Now, the thing that's implied in this, don't worry about whether you think or don't think you're conscious in deep sleep. Nobody gets enlightened in deep sleep. Don't worry about it. But there's an important element of practice that's implied. In meditation, we make a distinction between the state of manolaya and manonasha. I talked about this briefly earlier. Laya means dissolution. The term manolaya is the mind moving toward unconsciousness. Many people think meditation is I'm in my Barca lounger, and I turn on the new age music and smoke a doobie, and then and I'm gone for 45 minutes. That's not meditation. That's manolaya, moving towards sleep, unconsciousness. Now, if you run around with low-level anxiety and tension all the time, manolaya is very good. The hatha yogis have that as something you work on. If you take a yoga class, anybody here taking any yoga classes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So frequently at the end, have everybody lie down on their back and do shavasana, the corpse pose, right?
Mhm.
And they talk you into some gal, two people away. You heard that happen?
Mhm.
And it is okay to have periods of deep relaxation, but it's not meditation. Mind meditation is silent, but vigilant and alert. If any of you have ever had a cat and there's like a fly or a moth, cat will just crouch down, be incredibly still, watching the bug. Then it jumps. Seen him do that?
Mhm.
It's really quiet. It's totally. Now, I'm sure none of you has had this experience. You've been over at visiting some friends or maybe out at a club and you've had one or two drinks and you're driving home. Probably not the wisest thing in the world. So you're a good driver, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, checking all your mirrors. And then all of a sudden you see a police car behind you. You are silent, vigilant, and alert. Do you know the experience?
Yeah.
Your mind is really concentrated at that point. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, check your mirrors, seatbelt on. So that's the mind meditation. Well, Jim, I don't know what to do. I sit in meditation and after 10 minutes, I fall asleep. What do I do. There are some techniques. Probably the easiest is start meditating with your eyes open. And then you'll notice when you start to nod off. Stay conscious, stay vigilant. If you're chanting your mantra in your mind, you can chant the mantra louder, more quickly. You can chant the mantra so loud the stars will hear you. Will not disturb your husband or wife. Do your best to move through that. Now, who here has studied Tripura Rahasya? When Hemachuda, the prince, goes up into his crystal tower, follow the instructions of his wife, Hemaleka, sits in meditation. First, he sees bright light. Is that the self? I've seen the self. Plunges again in meditation, endeavoring to stop his mind. He sees darkness. He comes out to, is that the self? What happens on the third time when he plunges within? Anybody remember? He falls asleep.
Oh,
So the point is, this happens. You are not a failure as a yogi. But we need to move through that particular klesha, that defilement, that affliction. So yourself is always conscious. Knowledge of the self occurs in the waking state. It is the aha that occurs to the mind. Oh, I thought I was my body and I'm not. I thought I was a person and I'm not. What am I? Turiya. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Myself. And that doesn't change the self either. That's the deep insight in the mind. Self doesn't get realized. Or you can say the self is already enlightened. It is the lighted being. The buddhi, the subtle intellect, becomes buddha, awake. That's what happens. All right, next one.
Vaitasya grahanam tulyam bhayo pragnya turya yogo bija nidrayuta pragnya sacha turyena vidyate. The non-cognition of duality is equal in both sleep and turiya, but the sleeper conditioned in his sleep in the form of the cause, and this, the sleep or the cause avidya, does not exist in turiya.
Yes. So the self is ever luminous, ever aware. And in samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, nir means without, vikalpa means a movement, a perturbation, a thought. Sama equal the mind, the absolute equanimity of mind when there's no perception of phenomena. Swamiji used to say, when the last thought is thoughted before the next thought is thoughting. What remains? That prakash, that light of real phenomena. But you are not unconscious. Self, mind, waking state, dream state, deep sleep, samadhi. Mind return. Now, does the mind know the self? No. The mind recognizes what always is. For example, this is a worldly dualist example, but it's one of the best that I can do. Bring your attention to the sensation of your trousers on your waist. Are your pants too tight, too loose, or just right? You're laughing, it must be too tight.
No, they're just right because they're stretchy.
Stretchy. Okay. Now, 5 minutes ago, were you cognizant of it?
No.
Yet that sensation has been on your waist since you put your pants on this morning. See what I mean? So the direct experience of the waistband of your trousers is skin. But what did we do? We reflected on it. We brought the mind's eye to that direct experience. Does that make sense? The other one I like to use is take your hands, rub your hands together. Now stop. The instrument for hand rubbing is hands. Now we're going to do another process called reflection. When you rubbed your hands together, was it motion or stasis? Motion. Did it create coolness or heat?
Heat.
Okay, that secondary process is called reflection. With your mind, rub your hands together. Can't do it. The mind is not the instrument for the direct experience of hand rubbing. Hands off. But because you experienced it, you can reflect on it. Do you see that? Anybody understand what I'm saying or not understand it? Now, the difference is hand rubbing comes and goes. It's an objective phenomenon. Waistband of your trousers comes and goes. You take your pants off and down. You are always eyeing. You are an eternal factor. But because it is you, your mind can reflect. That's what we do. We investigate that direct experience. In that self, you are not unconscious. You are consciousness itself. And if you see that, your mind flashes with that recognition. Is the self getting illumined? Is the self having the insight? No, it's my mind. But is your mind that which knows the self? Is it the instrument for the direct experience of the self? No. You are the substratum of all experience. All right. I think this is a good place to stop. What are we on for next week?
14.
Any thoughts or insights? Stop here then. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.